The next episode of Nerd, Flicks, and Chill will start in
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey everybody, this is Nick,
And this is Carrie.
and we are Nerd, Flicks, and Chill, and today we are recapping Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 10, The Winds of Winter, the season finale. And Carrie,
Yeah.
what are your first thoughts?
That is exactly what my first thoughts were. Nothing. I had nothing. I couldn't find words. I had no words, and then I couldn't find the words, and then I all of a sudden had too many words, so then it canceled each other out. So that explained why our first few texts to each other were nothing but me just saying different characters' names followed by a string of exclamation points. Like I just couldn't even say anything. I was blown away.
So was I. You and I were on a delay this week because I'm out on the West Coast. So I had to go social media silent, shut my phone off, did all that stuff until I could see the West Coast feed. So I had to entirely remove myself from the electronic society so I could be spoiler free going into it. And I succeeded.
Good. I am so glad that you did it. And let me tell you, I know that was difficult for you, but it was so hard for me after the episode was done not to, like, I'm so accustomed to you and I talking about it immediately afterwards. And it was just like, I had just to bite my lip. I just couldn't say anything. And it was so difficult because I was buzzing with excitement after that episode. And I made sure that I stayed awake after you watched it so that we could at least try to chat about it a little bit. I was exhausted after my day, but oh man, it was worth it.
And before we kind of get into the recap of it, I would
Yeah.
say that I think you and I both agree, and I think you even tweeted this out on our Twitter handle at NerdFlixChill. Miguel Sapochnik should just direct every episode of Game of Thrones moving forward.
Not even Game of Thrones, just like everything. I want him to direct everything. Even commercials on TV. I want him to do everything.
So I was really fired up after the show, and I was like really excited, so much so that I like couldn't really collect my thoughts about it.
Yeah.
And when I finally settled down and I took a look at what was happening over these last two episodes, I thought to myself, man, this is a show that in the last two episodes did the two things it does best. It did the spectacle and it also did the interpersonal political intrigue. And even though it did the things that it does best, it also felt like the show has grown up.
Yeah. Yeah, these last two episodes really had a different feel to them. And I base most of that on Miguel Sapochnik, but even the score felt different these last two episodes as well. It had a very different feel to it, especially with this last episode. Completely different feel to it, where it, for a moment there, I want to say, and this is not a bad criticism, but it kind of removed me from it just a little bit. But it was so good and it matched what was going on so well that I didn't care. And I was so intrigued with what was happening and how they were setting things up that it married together so well. Normally, you think of the score kind of being subtle and in the background, but the score for the finale was just as much its own character, and I was completely okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, this was like very reminiscent of the way John Williams uses music to tell stories in
I
the films
agree.
that he scores.
Yeah.
Because the music here definitely told a story. And what I would like to see, a couple years ago in season 4, they took the last two episodes, The Watchers on the Wall and The Children, and they combined them and they did an IMAX run with them. I
Oh,
want them to do
wow.
the same thing with these two because I would pay money to see that in a theater. It
I
would
would
look
too.
tremendous.
Not even just to see it, but to have the theater sound, I think would be amazing.
Yeah, because you pick up so much more.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, can you imagine sitting in the theater for the battle from this episode before? The sounds of, especially when the arrows coming, they would be like all around you. That would just, oh my gosh, that tracking shot would be amazing just
Yeah,
to
and
hear that.
one of the other big things that I noticed here is that there have been a lot of complaints from book readers about certain bits of dialogue, speeches, and plot
Right.
points that have been left out. And what was really interesting here is that three of them from the books that are really popular with fans worked themselves into the story this week in a way that I thought was masterful. Like, there's we'll get to it in the recap, but the way they kind of revised some of the book material, I thought was done so well, and it made so much sense. And I think that as book readers that are watching the adaptation of this material, it's now going to feel a little bit different. I mean, aside from the fact that we're kind of moving forward into uncharted territory, but we know that they are going to go back and use book material, but they're going to rework the way it gets put in. And that's just wonderful.
Yeah, one of the overwhelming things after I was able to kind of settle down and I'm waiting for you last night to kind of catch up and be able to watch the episode, I was checking out Twitter and wanted to try and get the overall feel from book readers and show watchers alike to see, okay, was it just me that was just pumped up about it? Or I thought it was so amazing. I want to see if, anybody else feels this. And I'm really interested in people that are, harsh critics of it as well, because I want to see where they're coming from and try to understand it from a different perspective. And overwhelmingly, everything was completely positive. People that had been really harsh on the show ever since it started to really deviate and go off on its own, separate from the books, were like brought back in from like that won them over. That one episode won them over, and they were pumped and they really liked it. I saw a few criticisms, and I can understand them, but there were criticisms that I don't not that I don't want to say that they weren't valid, but ones to me that shouldn't discolor your overall opinion of everything. Man, it was so minor. It's like, don't harp on that, you know? Like for example, there was somebody who was actually complaining about the soundtrack, who actually complained about the score for episode 10 because they felt it was too strong. They thought it was it shouldn't be its own character. It should complement the characters on screen, but not detract from them. And I guess they were way too distracted because it was so different than what we were used to. So I can kind of understand. Um, but I
I don't
felt it
get
was,
that.
well, I get it if they were, like I said, because it was so different than what we've ever received from the show before. So I can, where some people might be distracted by it, or it kind of, and I even said too, for a moment there, it kind of separated me from the scene a little bit because it was so different, but it was so good that it didn't take long for it to completely engross me. So it
Yeah,
didn't bother me at all. But so I can understand if somebody was distracted by it. And I don't think that's invalid. I don't know. I was on board, so it wasn't
I
a bad thing for me at all.
I like when shows are willing to step out of their format a little
Oh,
bit. I
me
think
too.
that's one of the reasons why Fargo is so successful. If you watch
Yeah,
particularly the second season of Fargo, you feel like no two episodes of that show begin the same way, and it has like a different vibe to it. But
yeah.
I didn't get that about from this episode. I actually think the music was stellar.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. And we had heard it before the episode, actually, before the episode had aired, because the score was released, which I thought was very interesting, by the way. But um, oh, I appreciated it even more so after seeing what was taking place. Um, Yeah. But yeah, vast, overwhelming majority of consensus that I was reading was that so many people were completely turned around, and those who were very critical of the season up until now, they were like, okay, you've got me. And that leads me to something that I think is so important for people to keep in mind. And it sounds so simple and so common sense, but when you hear people's criticisms during a serial show that's going to be spread out over a season, over multiple episodes, that people were upset that, leading up to this or throughout the season, people were upset. Oh, well, they didn't give us this information, or, well, this doesn't make sense, and I don't know where this is going. And it's like, you can't view each individual episode as its own little thing. It's a story that's being stretched out. They're not going to give you all the information all in one or two episodes. It's going to be, stretched out over the whole thing. Same thing if you go to a movie and it's part of a series. Like The Force Awakens, for example. We know, yes, it's a continuation of previous movies, but we know that there are at least two others to come. And people, oh, we don't know who Rey's parents are, and we don't know her connection to these people, and we don't know Finn's story. It was like, well, they're not going to tell you all of that in the first movie. They're going to spread it out. You're going to get little bits and pieces. They're just setting it up right now. Settle down. If you had all that information, why you don't need to that's oh, I can't even form words because it upsets me so much. So I'm going to stop. Do you know
Okay.
what I'm saying though? It upsets me. It's like people just it's
Well, you got to
they're
let the
going to get
story
it.
play out.
Yeah,
It'll get around
you,
to it.
you have to trust. You have to
So,
trust. After seeing it, if the season's over and you're still upset and you still haven't gotten your answers, then your criticisms can be valid at that point. But don't be halfway through the season and already saying that it's terrible and things don't make sense, because you still have 5 more episodes to go. Settle down.
yeah. Well, unless like certain plot lines meander. Like I totally understand the criticism of how they wrapped up Arya's House of Black and White storyline,
Right.
just because I wasn't satisfied with that last meeting between Jaqen and Arya. Had that gone differently, I think I would have looked at that whole storyline a little bit differently. But that's besides the point. Let's get into our recap.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me step down off that soapbox that I was just on.
All right, watch your step.
Okay. All right, let's go.
So, before we even get into the show, the first thing that I was on the lookout for, and I'm sure most people were too, is in the opening credits when we roll over
Yes.
Winterfell and we see that dire wolf back on there. It just looked right.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like all is right with the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. That just set the scene right there. So good.
And we'll start with King's Landing because that's where the episode starts. And this immediately, and even the previously on was kind of structured a little bit differently than it normally is.
Yeah.
And that was the first sense I got that the tonality of this episode is going to be very, very different than what we're used to. And then once we are actually getting into it and we're seeing everybody starting to prepare, Cersei is getting dressed, Marjorie's having her hair done, the High Sparrow has a new burlap sack he's wearing, Tommen's putting on his crown. So everybody's kind of preparing. One of the things that jumped out at this scene, and I don't know what it means in retrospect, but do you remember when Tommen's putting on that chain around his neck?
Yes, I have a feeling I know what you're going to say because that stood out to me too.
It's all
The
Lannister
design?
lions.
Yes, the
Yeah,
design. Yes.
all golden lions. What is the show telling us here? Because as
I
far
don't.
as everybody knows, Tommen is a Baratheon. Well,
Yeah.
I guess they don't. They kind of know the truth, but like, I was wondering if this is some sort of, I don't know, symbolic gesture or confession on Tommen's part.
I don't know. I noticed that too, and I thought that was very strange because, yeah, it should be stags on him.
Yeah, he has the stag crown.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know.
So as we're seeing everybody get ready, we see Tommen have his stuff put on. We see Tommen first starting to kind of glance out the window, presumably at the sept, and we see everybody coming in. And this whole thing is beautifully done, and it's cut to this wonderful piano music that they have coming in as part of the soundtrack. And so much of this opening scene takes place without dialogue.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how they, you were just mentioning how everybody was getting ready, and it kind of, to me, I saw it as, not only is, everybody's preparing for this, but I saw it, there's what's the phrase, well, he everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, kind of a thing. Like they're essentially they're all people. They're all getting ready, because it showed the High Sparrow putting his hand in a sleeve, and then I think it cut to Tommen put his hand through the sleeve, or I think those were the two characters. Um, how everybody's getting ready, it's the same. It's the same. They're doing the same things. That's kind of how I interpreted that.
So we see everybody gathered in the Sept of Baelor, and we see Loras brought in, and Loras does his confession, says he wants to devote his life to the Seven. Meanwhile, Tommen is not there. Cersei is not there. The reason Tommen is not there is because Cersei has the mountain basically blocking the door.
Yeah.
So this is Cersei's move to protect him.
Yep, exactly. And Marjorie can tell right from the very beginning, before it even started, she can tell that there's something wrong because she looks next to her. Tommen's not there. She looks around. She sees that Cersei hasn't been brought in. So, right from the very beginning, it's like the hairs on the back of her neck are already sticking up because she's smart. She knows this isn't right. Something's wrong.
Yeah. We also see Pycelle be drawn out of his chambers by one of the little birds,
Yeah.
led into Qyburn's laboratory or whatever that place is.
Yeah.
And the immediate thought that I had when I was watching this opening segment, and I don't know even how long this goes, maybe about 20 minutes, I would guess, is this is I had mentioned this in the previous episode that we did for our predictions for this one, but I tied it to another character. I was talking about the movie The Godfather
Yeah.
and how I thought Sansa would pull a Michael Corleone move in The Godswood, which did not happen. But the Michael Corleone move here is pulled by Cersei. And this is really similar to The Godfather, actually, because at the end of The Godfather, Michael Corleone wipes out the five families. And interestingly enough, there's like an organ that's being played that scores the entire scene. And it just drew really heavy comparisons in my mind as soon as I saw it, because she had people being killed in different places at the same time. It was all a very detailed trap, the same way Michael Corleone did it in The Godfather. I mean, Lancel, when he is kind of told to go get Cersei, there's that little kid that as soon as he sees him starts running, kind of lures him
Yeah.
down into the uh, down into the sewers. So it was all set up in this really Michael Corleone, Francis Ford Coppola Godfather style.
Yeah. Cersei finally had a plan that actually worked. Well, kind of. It worked, but it almost worked a little too well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Loras ends up confessing. He gets the 7-pointed star carved into his head. That
Which,
pisses off
thank you.
Marjorie.
Okay, I'm just gonna lay it out here. I predicted that Cersei was not gonna have a trial, and I do believe I mentioned Loras giving himself over to the Seven and getting the symbol on his forehead. Thank you.
Yes, you do still get credit, even though I think his tenure in the Faith of the Seven is probably the shortest on record.
Well, yes, that's true. He was still marked.
But I did love this whole trial scene. The cinematography
Yeah.
is really well done. Those upshots of the High Sparrow that make him look like he's one of the statues that are around the sept. It's just
Yep.
really really well done. But him ordering them to carve the 7-pointed star into Loras's head really seems to piss off Marjorie.
Oh yeah. She says that you mutilated him. You broke your promise.
So at that point, They try to go get Cersei, and that's just not going to happen. So we've got this whole thing going on where we've got Loras being lured into the sewers. Kid ends up stabbing him. He ends up seeing the wildfire. We have Pycelle killed by the little birds. And it finally happens. Cersei's plan is executed. The wildfire burns and blows up the entire Sept of Baelor.
That was fantastic. Such well done CG. And I love that we got to see it from a couple different perspectives.
Yeah, and this is a massive explosion that takes place in King's Landing. And who knows how many people that were outside of the Sept that were killed.
Oh, exactly. Oh, we saw that giant church bell go flying into the streets.
Yeah. And Cersei killed her own uncle. She killed Uncle
Yeah.
Kevin. She killed Mace, Marjorie, and Loras Tyrell. The entire Tyrell line is now pretty much gone, except for the Queen of Thorns. But whenever she does eventually die, her house dies too. And the other part about this that I think is really interesting is it has that whole um, Rome burned and Nero played a fiddle kind of thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way Cersei's there drinking her wine, wearing her Disney Evil Queen costume, which looks
Oh,
phenomenal, by the way.
and you know that I love that. You
Oh, it's
know that I
amazing.
love that with the little like lion um epaulets on her shoulders and her like Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation chords going across. So, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. So good. The costume design for her this entire episode, all the way through to the end, and she comes out in a different outfit, and her just everything is so well done. Props to the costume designers.
I was stunned that they killed Marjorie Tyrell.
Yeah, me too. I thought for certain when she says, we need to get out of here. I thought for certain she was going to get out.
So did I. I
I was
thought,
shocked.
and you know what? This is where I fell into the Game of Thrones trap, because this is kind of what happens not just in the show but in the books as well, where you buy into a character's plan and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're like, oh yeah, but this is going to go somewhere because this character has a plan, and then all of a sudden they're dead.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way it goes. It's she had her plan for what she wanted to do. She was playing the game, and it didn't work. She ended up cooked by Cersei.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad she sent away Lady Olenna. I'm so glad she told her to leave, and I'm glad Lady Olenna listened because I love her. So I'm
So
glad that she made it.
and we're gonna kind of stick with this whole thing too. We'll just keep everything in King's Landing here.
Okay.
The aftermath of this is really what is interesting.
Yeah.
Tommen takes his own life by jumping out of a window.
Therefore, telling us all why it's called King's Landing.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's so bad. I can't take credit for that. I actually saw that on Twitter and I thought that was really horrible and wonderful and hilarious, and I'm ashamed of myself.
Well, you know what? You know what's really funny is he's looking out the window, and as soon as he takes his crown off, is when it triggered to me what he was going to do.
Well, yeah,
Because he
because
takes the crown off,
the
and then he
camera
walks
doesn't.
off camera.
Yeah, and it doesn't follow him. The shot stays there on that open window.
It very understated, really, for this show. Like they don't make a big deal out of Tommen's death. Like they're already transitioning into the next scene before he even hits the ground.
Well, to me, that makes it even more shocking. Like it just like it takes your breath away, and you don't have to see him actually falling or the tracking shot of him falling. You don't have to see him, laying on the ground or, people reacting to it. I think the fact that it's quiet, there was no music, all you hear is his footsteps. He leaves frame. You can hear him put down his crown. You hear his footsteps comes back, or you hear his footsteps come back. He steps up and then over. And it completely takes your breath away. Like you don't even have a chance to exhale from that. And to me, that makes it more powerful.
I agree, and that's a director's choice.
Yep.
That's the kind of choice that a director makes in a show, and I think that's one of those choices that really separates the good ones from the great ones.
Yeah, and I agree. I am wholeheartedly of the camp that you don't have to show and see everything. I think it's just as powerful, if not more so, to not. And that's
Well,
a perfect example.
they dialed it back because with Pycelle, they sure did show everything. That is a pretty violent stabbing that he got. I mean, he's seeing the blood coming up out of his mouth and his nose.
Yeah, but at the same time, you didn't really see you saw the shot of his face, then you saw the shot of the little birds' faces as they're all stabbing him, and then you see them kind of gathered around him from behind. But it wasn't like, for example, like Leaf, where you saw her as she was getting stabbed and you saw the stabbing going in and out. You didn't really see that so much with him. But yes, him spitting up the blood and everything was horrible. And all actually all I could think about was the actor as he was spitting that blood, because I noticed that it came up and out of his mouth and like right into his eye. And if you've ever had fake blood in your eye, it's horrible. And it was all I could think. I'm like, oh my gosh, that poor actor. He just got all that blood and it's puddling around in his eye area. And I know that does not feel good. That was all I kept thinking about.
So after Tommen's suicide, they decide that they're going to have um, his body burned and ashes spread where
Where the sept
the
was,
sept once stood.
which I thought
But
was interesting.
yeah, it's a weird choice.
Yeah,
Um, but Cersei didn't kill everybody in this episode. She did leave Septa Unella
she did.
alive, and holy cow, this scene was crazy.
It was crazy. And wow, the dialogue, Cersei's confession, I guess, and you being the Septa Unella fan, what were your thoughts while this was going on?
This to me was the fulfillment of Cersei's promise, but
Yeah,
now she's doing it in a very like Ramsay Bolton kind of way.
yeah, very
And
much
that's
so.
that's immediately what I thought of, where Cersei said, "Oh no, you're not going to die today. Here's Sir Gregor, he's your god now," and all this other stuff. And she's now left to be tortured by this giant zombie maniac.
Oh yeah, she's a zombie's plaything now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you now we actually know what the mountain looks like without his mask on.
yeah,
I did not expect that. I never expected to see that helmet come off.
I didn't either. I was kind of shocked, and I don't know if it was just because of the lighting that they had. And when I watched it the second time, I was watching on my computer, and I think maybe I had my screen tilted weird, but I couldn't really see his face very well. Like, I'm really curious to see better. I want to be able to see more clearly what his makeup looked like because I couldn't see it as well as I would have liked to.
Yeah, me too. I would like to really see it up close. I think it's because of that like artificial darkening that they do in post production.
Yeah, there was something about it that looked kind of CG'd, but I didn't know. I mean, like, they have such good makeup artists working on this show. Why would they CG his face? So, unless it was because they added the shadow, there was just something that looked filtered. Or, like I said, I don't know if it was because of the angle of my monitor or what was going on, but something looked a little strange right there. So, I want to see. I would like to have seen it clearer.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, Cersei has to get the last words in there
Oh my
as she's
gosh.
closing the door, yelling, "Shame, shame, shame." How much fun did Lena Headey look like she was having playing Cersei in this episode? This is
Oh,
like all the chickens coming home to roost. This is the kind of stuff, if you're an actor, that's got to be so much fun to play.
the villains are so much more fun to play than the good guys because there's so much more variance in what you can do, and it's just It's so fun being the bad person. It really is. I'm speaking from experience. Not from me actually being a bad person, but from portraying a bad, evil villain person. It's fun.
And I got to tell you, I felt bad for Tommen in this episode. I really did. I mean, this
Yeah.
kid was manipulated, of course, and you can blame him for his own manipulation if you want to, but he wasn't Joffrey. Like he had kindness. He wanted to be a good king. He loved Marjorie.
Yeah. Yeah. He just couldn't take it anymore. And what about Sir Pounce? What about Sir Pounce? He didn't even think. He was only thinking of himself. He didn't even think about poor Sir Pounce.
This is true. Poor Sir Pounce. I want to come back to the Cersei stuff and King's Landing towards the end when we start to wrap it all up. But what I wanted to go to next was everything that was happening at the Twins with Walder Frey.
Yeah.
So we get Jamie at another Frey catered event. Freys do good catering at the Twins.
So we're
It's
led to
usually
believe.
a little bit bloody, good with weddings,
Yeah.
celebrations, all that good stuff. And Walder Frey is basically celebrating taking back River Run from the Tullys, thanks to the Lannisters.
Right. And
And
he's taking all of the credit for it. Really.
he is taking all the credit. And not only did he do that, but he also threw Edmure back into the dungeons.
Yep. Because he doesn't want to have the stigma of him killing his own family. Because they're family by marriage now.
And now I think is when we're starting to see the internal conflict
Yep.
in Jamie starting to build.
Yeah, he looked
And
so uncomfortable during this whole thing. He did not want to be there, and he just couldn't hold back.
well, part of it is because Walder Frey screwed over Edmure and the deal that he had made with Jamie.
Right.
The other part of it comes in that other scene where they're sitting down at the table and Jamie and Walder Frey are talking, and Jamie says to him, have you ever fought in a battle? And Walder Frey talks about defeating his enemies, and what it gets down to, he talks about how they're both kingslayers, how essentially he's saying that they're both similar. And I think when Jamie is confronted with the idea that Walder Frey thinks that he and Jamie Lannister are the same kind of guy,
Yeah.
I think that does all kinds of things to Jamie.
Yeah, he didn't care for that one bit. And he told me, he's like, people aren't afraid of you. They're not afraid of the Freys, they're afraid of the Lannisters. And we don't want to have to keep coming back here every time you lose the Riverlands. We put you there because you were supposed to maintain it for us. We want to have to keep coming back and taking it back for you. Get your shit together.
Yeah, I mean, this alliance between the Freys and the Lannisters, it's really not important to the Lannisters, I don't think.
Well, at least not to Jamie.
Not to Jamie, but Jamie is effectively the Lord of Casterly Rock. He's the
That's
head of
true.
the Lannister army. He's the head
Yep.
of House Lannister.
Yeah. He don't need them.
And of course, we see Braun and Jamie doing their thing. They've got a little comic relief. Those scenes really worked well. Very, very funny. Making eyes at the different servers. And
I love the fact that he's just like, you don't have to do anything, do you? He's like, you just have to sit there. You don't have to do anything. And they just all come flocking to you.
and again, it is that reminder that we get that these are the best looking people in Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie and Cersei are thought to be two of the most beautiful people in the entire, world. And I thought those scenes really did work well. I thought they were legitimately funny. It also kind of shoehorned in the idea of this winking server, I guess. I don't know. Banquet server at the Frey party, kind of winking at Jamie. As soon as the wink happened, I knew exactly what was going on.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I totally did not.
I thought that
I completely did not.
I thought the camera lingered on her for just a little too long, and I knew it then.
Wow. Well, then I have to hand it to you because I was shocked when it was revealed later. Didn't see it coming at all.
So Jamie leaves with his Lannister army. Party's over, right? Um, we don't know how much time has passed for Walder Frey, but we see him eating a lovely meat pie
Mm-hmm.
brought to him by the same server who winked at Jamie. And wouldn't you know it, Walder Frey wants to know where his kids are, and the server says to him, "They're here. They're all here." She gestures down to the pie. Walder lifts a really lovely golden brown crust to reveal his children have been cooked into the pie.
Were you expecting to see like a finger or like a body part or something when he lifted that up? I was expecting to see something.
I was kind of expecting it, but I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, because it would have felt a little too forced or artificial, but even watching it a second time, I was really, really inspecting them. Like, is there a fingernail in there that I didn't see? Like, I was looking for something that is so disgusting. But I thought there was going to be something there. But yeah, I think I'm kind of glad that there wasn't because it seems a little too cheesy, a little too
Yeah.
horror movie ish, I guess.
And then, of course, we get the reveal that the winking banquet server is, in fact, Arya Stark, who gets to tell Walder Frey that a Stark face is the last thing you're going to see before you die, and she cuts his throat.
Oh, not just any Stark face, but a smiling Stark face.
Yeah, camera lingers on Arya for a little while here too, just like
Yeah.
it did last season. Like she seems to enjoy the killing.
Yep. Yeah, I am now again back on board with her and wanting to know where her storyline is going to go because I'm like you. Earlier on this season, I it felt kind of derailed, and then it was on. It was just such a roller coaster ride. Last season into this season, and up and down, and I was liking it, and then I didn't like it, and now I'm like, okay, I'm on board again, and let's go. Where are you taking us? Where are you heading to after this? Because I really didn't think we were going to see her this episode at all. I didn't, so I was shocked that we did.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by it, but I was surprised by where she turned up, but I wasn't surprised that we saw her.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and I know there are going to be people out there that are going to complain and they're going to say, "Well, how did she know how to do the whole face thing? Did she steal faces from the House of Black and White?" Honestly, at this point, I don't care. I don't care how they rationalize it.
I
I don't care
kind
if she
of
knows how to do the face removal or if she stole a bunch of shit before she left. I don't care. I'm kind of glad that storyline's over.
I figured when she put up the waif's face, she probably took a face to put to replace with the waif's.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good
That's what
idea.
I figured. And she might have stashed a couple more. I don't know. But that's how I can justify that, I guess. But I think it would be really cool if we are to assume she took that one face and if she will be consistently as this other girl, maybe in different costumes or hair or whatever as it goes on so that it's made consistent that way.
Yeah, and remember how I was talking about there were three big book things that got worked back in here?
Right.
The Frey kids cooked into a pie is one of them.
Oh, it is. Okay.
But it's not from Arya Stark. It's actually something that's kind of perpetrated by another character who we see later in this episode. It's a little bit remixed,
Mhm.
but it is cool that they did work it in. And I actually think having it done this way really does make a lot of sense. So I thought this was great.
I think they've done a really good job in mixing some of the book things and kind of remixing them, rather, as you'd said, where it's the same type of thing, but yet they give it to a different character. They combine things into other characters and whatnot. Now, granted, I again didn't read the books, but from what I have gathered and since read about different things that they've in the remixes that they've done, I thought they were always really, really well done. Except for the Dorn stuff.
Except for the Dorn stuff. But that's a second book thing that they got back around to this week. We'll get to that
That's
in
what
a
I
second.
heard. Yeah, okay.
Before we get there, I want to go to Old Town, where Sam finally gets to the Citadel.
Okay.
He gets to the Citadel, beautiful establishing shot of Old Town. You see the spire of the Citadel kind of up in the sky, almost looks like the Washington Monument.
His Uber horse cart couldn't get him closer.
I know, they dropped him off pretty far away.
And then why are they like walking on a cliff? Like you have a woman and a baby and you're walking along a cliff to get there? Come on.
Yeah, it would have made a little more sense if like they're looking out the window of the carriage as it's still going on, and you could still get the same establishing shot.
Yeah, you would still be able to see the scenery. You would still be able to see them in awe or whatever, but then see the horse and cart going towards the city. So at least make you think they're being taken at least to the outskirts or the border of the city or the city walls or gates or whatever. But that's a really long walk for somebody, for
Yeah,
especially a woman carrying a baby. Come on.
yeah. Sam would be like, "Why are you dropping us here?"
Did you
Like
chuckle?
cinematography is why.
That's right. I chuckled when he got off the cart and he had the sword and he just
Yeah,
had it all like wrapped up in a blanket.
yeah. Nothing to see here.
That's right. No, this short sword shaped blanket does not have a sword in it at all.
This isn't the sword you're looking for.
That's
Move
right.
along. Sam gets into the Citadel, finds a really obnoxious librarian when he gets
Oh
there.
my gosh,
Whoever's
handing over
working Citadel receptions, you know,
handing over that envelope that just like infuriated me for whatever reason. I was like, "Really? Come on,
yeah,
jerk."
but like, do you ever like go into like a high-rise building and there's always like some snooty receptionist who like doesn't want to let you into the building?
Or like some kind of fancy schmancy hotel where the people are like, "You're not our kind and we know you don't belong here." Yeah.
And it's funny too because this guy, and I don't remember the name of the character, but he's looking through to see who the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch is, and you're like, man, these people down south just do not know shit.
Yeah.
There's so much going on that they're just unaware of.
Yeah, but why if unless they're told about it, why would they? Why would they think anything else? Because I think they are so, I don't know what the word is, high and mighty that everybody tells us anything. And if it's not told to us, then it hasn't happened. That's how full of themselves that they are, especially with the, oh, you have something, you're bringing me something, then you have to give it to me. I'm not going to take it from you. You have to make an effort to give it to me. That sets it up right there.
They do finally allow Sam to have access to the library though. And he has to do that kind of, sorry face to Gilly because he's got to go check out this library.
It was so awkward, and you could tell he was so excited, but he's like, I don't want to leave you, but I'm sorry, I have to go. He was so excited, and I wanted how many people thought of the scene from Beauty and the Beast when the Beast shows Belle the library.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
completely what that was.
It is true. But I love Sam and Gilly. I think this is actually the best example of a relationship in the show, despite how odd Gilly's backstory may be. They're two of the two characters who I think are in the strongest relationship in this series.
They're adorable. I know a lot of people don't really care about them, but I just love it. They make my heart melt, and I love
Yeah,
it.
I think Gilly is wonderful. I do. I love her constant enthusiasm. She's fearless and she's just a great character.
Yeah. And did you notice when we got that beautiful shot, kind of showing us the expanse of the Citadel's library, that there's, I think they're called astrolabs that are
Hmm.
hanging? You can see one of them looks exactly like the astrolab that's in the opening credits.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool little Easter egg in there.
Yeah, it's very quick. But you see, because you can see the band and you see like the dragon that's on the astrolab in the credits. I loved that.
And this sets up season 7 for Sam and
Oh, it
all the stuff
does.
he's going to learn. And I'm excited to see what he comes across there. He's going to knock himself out in that library.
Yeah, and I know that his storylines aren't the most um, exciting or um I don't know, action packed maybe, but I have a soft spot in my heart for him and Gilly. I can't help it. They're my guilty pleasure.
And it was a very cool transition because as Sam is arriving to the Citadel, the White Ravens are being released from the
That was
Citadel,
cool. That was very, very cool to see.
transitioned us right into the north where we see Winterfell and we see John and Melisandre and Davos.
This scene really got me. It really, really got to me.
Why is that?
Well, maybe got to me is wrong. It really grabbed me and I got choked up at this scene because of Davos. Because
Yeah,
he was
great
so,
performance.
that performance was so wonderfully understated and incredibly powerful, where he was holding back the tears and he was choked up and furious and sad and angry just all at the same time. And there's just something about an older man crying that just makes me break down. And
Same.
I got so choked up watching his combination of an outpouring and a restraint of emotion, and it really got me.
I loved her like she was my own, he said.
Oh my gosh. Killed me again.
And Melisandre, to her credit, you can tell she does feel remorse here.
She does. She
She
was holding
does.
back tears too. Her lip was quivering, which I thought was a very good, again, an understated performance from what's her name? Carice, I think her
Yeah,
name is.
Carice Van Houten.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she was just as skillful in showing and yet restraining that emotion in that moment, which is hard to do because it's a very subtle thing. You either go way over the top or not enough at all, and really good.
But that's the interesting thing. I thought you were talking about how Liam Cunningham really played this scene well. I thought Carice Van Houten, like you said, she played it really well. Also, because she's able to walk this line between guilt,
Yeah.
shame,
Hmm.
but there's also um,
Purpose.
a little bit, yeah, yeah, a little bit of purpose. She's, basically saying that she feels guilty. She does feel ashamed of what she did in a way, but at the same time, it wasn't just her. It was her. It was Shireen's father and her mother.
And the Lord of Light, she's kind of like, don't kill the messenger.
Hmm.
It's I'm doing what he says to do. I'm doing his bidding. It's not me. I didn't want to. It was kind of like she, without saying those words, she was basically saying I didn't want to do it. It's not. I'm not proud of what I did. But Stannis and his wife were just as guilty, if not more.
And this puts John in a predicament because Davos is asking if he can execute her.
Yeah.
And John has to make a decision here, and it's a tough decision for John because I know I mean, I'm not saying John thinks that murdering a child is right, but John has also seen the kind of mystical element going on here. It's what brought him back from the dead. He's
Yeah.
seen her power, and I think that stays his hand from executing her. So instead, he opts for banishment.
However, if he sees her or hears of her back up in the north, he said he will execute her. And Davos even said too, if I see you, I will do it myself.
This is very true, and she has to bail out of there. What I'm thinking for Melisandre, I'm wondering if now that she is going south, if in season 7, as she's going south, she will cross paths with another character who she has said that she will see again as that character moves north.
That's true. I was wondering. I was thinking about that a couple episodes ago and I kind of forgot about it, and you just reignited again that yes, she said before that she was going to see Arya again.
And now they're both potentially going to be heading in a direction towards one another. If assuming Arya does go north to Winterfell, and I would guess that's what she would do.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, who knows? Is she going to continue on with her list? Or was she like, well, since the twins is on the way, I'll hit that and then I'll go home?
Well, you know what's funny? I, one of the things that I got really excited about in this episode is the idea that she killed Walder Frey, and two of the other people on her list are the Mountain and Cersei.
Hmm.
And I was thinking to myself, shit, wouldn't it be awesome if she were to meet up with the Hound and they both go down to King's Landing and try to fuck
Oh
up
my gosh.
Cersei and the Mountain?
That would be amazing. It'd be like they'd be like the opening act for Clegane Bowl.
And you know what's funny too? We talked about how the Clegane Bowl thing kind of died when they outlawed the trial by combat. I am now reinvigorated with the idea that Clegane Bowl is going to happen.
And how do you think it's with the Arya thing?
I don't know how the pieces are going to get there, but I've noticed that the character of the Mountain has seemingly been elevated within the context of the show.
Yeah.
Like, not only he was just this big Frankenstein's monster, but now like he's taken the helmet off. We know he has like a pet now.
Yeah.
Like it lends to his characterization and elevates him to a status that it's going to be satisfying to see somebody try to take him down.
I'd be on board for
Because
that.
this is, I mean, we talked about kind of how weird it is to be rooting for Cersei this season, but this was the episode where Cersei got her revenge, but also revealed herself as a villain in this series.
I think when she is doing her worst, it's when she's at her best. And as far as she is concerned, she's lost everything. You know, her kids were everything to her. She, she has Jamie, and her and Jamie exchange some looks later on. I know we'll talk about that later, so I don't want to touch too far into that, but she's lost her reason to live, really, were her kids. They were her driving force in everything that she did, and they're gone. And now it's almost like her evilness has been now more finely concentrated.
I agree.
And I am so excited to see what happens because Lena Headey is so skillful at that. I love watching her be bad. I
Yeah, it's
love
one of
it.
those it's one of those things where you hate to see the character die because the actor has given such awesome life to it. That's the
Yeah.
way I also felt about Oberyn Martell. I thought Pedro Pascal was so awesome as Oberyn, and even knowing that he was going to die that way, I was kind of hoping even at the last minute, like just keep him around somehow.
Yeah.
Cut off a leg, do something, but like leave that character alive. But I think that's also the great part about this show. You get these heavy hitter actors in there. Even the way Charles Dance played Tywin Lannister, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So as Mel is riding south, we get Sansa and Jon, that awesome symmetrical shot of them standing on the battlements,
Mm-hmm.
watching Melisandre go away. Very, very cool shot there. And that's where Sansa tells Jon about the White Raven. They also have the conversation about the Knights of the Vale, and they finally kind of have it out there as much as they can have it out, I guess.
I thought it was going to be a bit more of a emotionally charged moment. But it was a little more matter of fact and calm than I thought it was going to be, which I guess, shows John's maturity, I guess, is what he's showing maybe at this point. I thought he was still going to be very pumped and emotional over it. So I was kind of surprised that he was so understated with that as well.
Well, here's what I realized, I think, in this episode. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I've kind of got a better mind on this. Is that Jon and Sansa are both in a position where they are deferring to each other. Jon thinks he serves her. She thinks she serves him.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're both deferring to each other as the leader, and they have this kind of like weird, cross of signals. And that's even underscored in this scene where they talk about how, John was having the Ned and Kat's chamber prepared for Sansa. And she says, well, it should be you. And he's like, no, it should be you. And it kind of gives you the idea that they both think of each other as the leader of the house.
That's true. That would make sense of why then he wasn't, or why he was holding back in that scene then to show, I guess, a manner of respect for her authority that he saw.
And, John says to her, we have to trust each other. We have so many enemies now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's true. They do. They have people gunning for them.
Yep.
But what I love is, man, I fucking love when Sansa tells John about the White Raven and that winter's here. And John says, Father did always tell us.
Yeah.
Come on, that's so wonderful.
It is wonderful. I don't really have anything else to say about it, but
Uh,
it was a nice little moment.
yeah, and that's exactly what it was. It was a moment where, again, Jon Snow smiled.
He
Haven't
did.
seen Jon smile in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But again, great stuff from those two. Let's see, where do we go next? Ah, yes, we go to Dorne. Dorne is back.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first thoughts on Dorne is that this scene is designed as fan service. People talk about fan service. This is legitimate fan service right here. Because I think they were like, you know what? People hated the Sand Snakes. They hated Ilaria Sand. So what we're going to do is we're going to put them in a room with the Queen of Thorns, and she's just going to tear them all apart with words.
I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, and it worked great. I mean, fan service, whatever. I don't care. I'll take it in the scene.
You've got no complaints from me.
And Lady Olenna in her black gown in mourning.
All the women, though, if I'm remembering correctly, all the women were wearing black this episode. Every single one of them.
What about Dany?
Yeah, she was wearing black.
Was she?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You don't remember her sitting on the ship at the end? She was wearing black.
Hmm.
Even before then, she was wearing black.
I have to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
But here's the other cool thing. So this is where we see the plan revealed. I was talking about 3 big book things that they came back to. A lot of people got pissed off when they killed Duran Martell because Duran Martell had a plan. And all that they did was took the revelation of his plan and they moved it into this scene with the words vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. And that's the big reveal that we get. Varys has been working with presumably Ilaria Sand, who is the leader of Dorne at the moment. And now they're tying in to their Tyrell alliance here, or tying the Tyrells into their alliance. So we do get Dorne back for a couple of minutes, and this Dorne scene did not bother me at all.
It didn't bother me either. And I don't really mind any scene that has Lady Olenna in it because she's one of my favorite characters. So she commands my interest no matter
What
what it is. So that won me over right away.
what was your name again? Barbara?
Anything from you? No? Okay, good. Let's let the adults talk.
She is wonderful, man.
I
She's just the
know it.
best.
Good stuff.
Um, Dany and Dario, they break it off. Well, she breaks it off, telling him that you need to stay in Marine.
Which I
And
predicted. Thank you very much.
yeah, you did. You nailed that one.
I predicted
And
that, and I predicted the Melisandre thing too, that she was going to get banished.
and ironically, in just the stroke of a couple of lines on the script, Dany has installed a democracy in Marine.
What do you mean?
Dany says that she's going to be going over to Westeros. She's leaving Dario to look over the security of the city until the people of Marine can choose their own leaders.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, democracy.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason thought you were referring to, because there's a line that Dario says, uh, where he's, the Queen of Dragons, who's gonna come after that? And she says, "Oh, a line of many women, I'm sure." And at first, I thought he was referring to position of queen over the thing. I'm like, "Oh no, wait, they're talking about him and his relationship."
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. Again, I was confused by it.
After we get that conversation between Dany and Dario, we see a scene with Dany and Tyrion. Another scene, kind of like the Winterfell scene, another scene that I just love. Relatively simple,
Yep.
but this is some of the best stuff that Peter Dinklage has had to work with this season, where he talks about his cynicism and how he, has been told to believe in things, but how he believes in Dany.
Yeah.
And Dany believes in him because she reaches into her cleavage and pulls out a hand of the kingpin,
I don't,
hand of the queen.
that had to have hurt. That's not comfortable. That was not comfortable. But it looked
Yeah,
great. She's like, "I'm not sure if it's right." It was exactly right. It was silver instead of gold. It was wonderful. And I just thought
and
it was a very sweet moment. I love that he was up on the stair, and so they were almost eye to eye. That was just lovely. And he knelt down. Oh, I love
and we forget that Tyrion was hand of the king
it. Yeah.
for the last time in season 2, episode 9.
Oh, you got very specific.
Well, that was the Blackwater episode.
Yeah.
And when he woke up after the battle in episode 10, he was no longer hand of the king.
Right.
So 4 seasons later, 4 complete seasons later, he is now hand of the queen.
Yeah.
And again, this is just a lot of really great stuff. And I give a lot of credit to the director here, Miguel Sapochnik, for giving great direction to the characters or to the actors. And it works perfectly. It's, again, small, simple scene with really great dialogue.
Agreed.
Okay,
I
that
got
was
nothing
easy.
else to add to that. I'm sorry. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. It was wonderful. There have been so many great one-on-one moments throughout this season, and this is yet another one. And yes.
All right, so let's see what's next. Uh, Littlefinger and Sansa in the God's Wood.
Yeah. Creepy, creepy little finger.
Yeah, he basically says, I want the Iron Throne and I want you to be right next to me when I take it.
And he goes in for a kiss. He's got the head tilt and everything. Ugh. It just creeped me out. Gross.
Yeah, I thought that she was going to kill him here. I thought she was going to kill him,
Yeah.
but she didn't.
She didn't. She put her hand out. She's not. It's a beautiful picture. And again, I predicted it. Thank you very much. That they were just going to have a discussion. They were going to have a little tiff, and it was going to lead with Sansa walking away. And that's exactly what happened. I was killing it this episode.
You really were. You're all over it. Um, with regards to this conversation that they have,
Yeah.
this is the first time I can ever recall Littlefinger revealing his actual desire to take the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's ever verbalized it before, which I think is interesting. And he talks about every action that he takes. He thinks that he only will go. He will only take that action if it gets him closer to this image he has of him on the Iron Throne with Sansa by his side. I feel like that reveal is going to come back on him at some point. Because I
Yeah.
still believe Sansa will be his downfall.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't really care too much about the scene once I realized that Sansa wasn't going to kill him, but the thing that I found really, really interesting is at the end of the scene, Littlefinger turns his head and kind of looks back in the direction of the weirwood tree. And then we get that shot of, snow covering, looks like some pine trees that are out there. I didn't know what to make of it, but I thought it was interesting.
I didn't take anything from it at all.
The way he's looking behind him.
I don't know. I didn't. I didn't think of it at all. I just figured it was just him looking away. Because that's the opposite direction from where he's going, from where Sansa was walking. It's like he almost can't bear to watch her walk away. So I didn't take anything any more from it than that.
Yeah, we'll have to. Hmm. I don't know what I want to say about this.
It's just something that stuck out in your mind and you don't know why. Um,
No, I just think it's an interesting touch.
mm,
I don't think it's a meaningless thing.
okay.
But that does transition us back to Benjen Stark and Bran, where they
Is
have
that where
found
you're
a.
thinking because he looks at the weirwood tree and that's kind of like the three-eyed raven communication phone booth? And then
Yeah,
all of a
well,
sudden we get a scene with Bran next at a weirwood tree?
kind of. And it's been established. I don't know if this is a little bit like book spoilery. Well, maybe not too much. But it has been thought to believe that voices can be heard coming from the weirwood trees.
So my comparing it to a phone booth was actually pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. But anyway, we'll leave it right there. It
So
just
it's like the
raised an eyebrow, I
So
would
it's like
say.
the thing when you go to a science center and there's the room where you can go to the corner on one and the corner on the other and you can whisper and you can hear it travel. It's like that.
Yes,
It,
kind of like that.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like a an organic version of tin cans
Yes.
with a string.
The Westeros Center of Science
Yes.
presents the Weirwood phone booth.
Sorry. So Benjen and Bran,
Yeah, so we see Benjen and Bran and Mira. I assume they're probably near the wall.
they show the wall through the trees, I thought. When we see the trees with the snow on them, I thought you could see the wall through the trees. Like they're right there.
Are they?
I'm almost positive.
I'd have to check that again to go back and look. I didn't see it. I just saw just kind of a forest filled with trees.
I didn't notice it the first time, but it was the second time when I watched it that there's an opening in the trees, almost dead center of the screen, and
You're right.
you can
Yes,
see the
you're
wall
correct.
right
I
there.
actually have it up on my screen right now. You're correct. They can see the wall.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not right up on it, but they're
I'm wondering if this is the same
close.
Weirwood where John swore his vows and where he took Ygritte to burn her body.
I think so.
But one of the interesting reveals that we get here before Bran goes to the Weirwood tree is this is where we actually have Benjen talking about how it's not just ice that holds up the wall,
Yeah.
how there's magic that's built into the wall, and because of that magic, he is unable to cross. And
Yep.
that's why he has to leave them. I think this sets up the thing that I talked about last week.
So the wall is kind of like an ice version of an electric fence.
Okay.
I guess is what I'm seeing. So he
Okay.
can't go anywhere near it. He can't
This-
pass it. He's gonna get zapped or something.
yes. This is the episode of analogies.
Thank you.
But basically, because of some magical stuff going on, Uncle Benjen can't pass the wall.
Right.
He doesn't say whether or not Bran can or can't, even though he's been marked.
Yeah, and he knows Bran's been marked. I would assume. Did they
He might
discuss
not.
it?
Yeah, he might not know the consequences of the mark, though. I don't know that many people have that Night's King mark.
Yeah, I mean because it dispelled the magic around the three-eyed raven's cave tree lair thing. But does that mean it's going to dispel all of that kind of enchantment? I mean, other than being a GPS device for the Night's King?
I don't know. I
Hmm.
really don't know.
I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
So at the Weirwood, Bran decides he's going to practice a little bit of green seeing, and he touches the tree, and we go back to the tower.
Right to it.
And this kicks off about 5 minutes of stuff that might be some of my favorite stuff the show has ever done.
I had a feeling that when you were watching it, you I could just see you with like your fists clenched and like almost like, ooh, here it comes, like really, really excited and into it.
Well, people often forget that these books, the first book came out in like the early 90s,
Yeah.
when like people were listening to Milli Vanilli and Color Me Bad and all kinds of awful shit on the radio.
Yeah.
And this was planted then. And now, after all this time, we see what happens in the Tower of Joy. So we see Ned run in, Lyanna bleeding everywhere. There are other uh, people in there too, other caretakers that are in there with her. She looks like she's been through quite an ordeal. And
I didn't
she
see any
has this.
blue roses. Did you see any blue roses in there?
I did not see any blue roses.
I noticed that the nurses were wearing blue, but I didn't see any blue roses. Sorry. It
Yeah,
was a
no
detail
blue
I was
roses.
looking for, and I did not see it.
But we do get this great conversation between Ned and Lyanna where Lyanna is talking about how she wants to be brave. She doesn't want to die. She's afraid and she knows that she is going to die. And then it happens. We see her draw Ned in and then she says something. And what she says is his name is, and then we don't hear what she says, but we pick it back up with her saying, if Robert finds out, he'll kill him. You have to protect him.
Yeah.
Promise me, Ned. Promise me.
Yeah. And then he's handed over a baby.
And
But when she says his name is, I can't tell what she's saying, but I know she didn't say the word John. It does not look like her mouth is forming the sound for a J.
I agree. It's definitely not John.
Mm-mm.
But what I love about this too, and this is another moment where the music is so perfectly done. When you see Ned turn to receive this baby from this caretaker who's in the room, the music starts to swell and swell and swell and build, and it ends with this eruption into the Stark theme into Jon Snow's face. It is so fucking cool the
Yeah.
way that was done. I absolutely loved it.
One of the things that stood out to me is how I've been constantly saying how mellow John was. Well, that was the most mellow baby I have ever seen. So it
Yeah,
was
that was such a Jon
perfect.
Snow baby.
It was. And that it almost kind of made me chuckle because of that, but in a good way. I thought it was a very nice continuation of that character, even into an infant. He was mellow and chill.
So here's the other thing about this scene that I just loved so much is that John John's parentage is one of the great, you can call it secrets of this story if you want to still call it a secret, or, well, not anymore. But I never thought that in solving this mystery that they would introduce another one. Now we know who John's parents are,
Yeah.
but now we don't know what John's real name is.
Which, by the way, I believe I predicted. Not about a name, but I posed the question to you. Do you think they're going to give us some sort of a twist?
Yeah, and that was it. There's definitely a surprise in there that John
Yeah.
is not John's name.
So, do you think I'm curious as to the sleuths on Reddit. Who has analyzed this scene and is really good at reading lips that believe that they can make out what she said?
I have seen a theory out there, and it does make sense.
You have. Okay, I haven't gone that far yet.
I think, and I've seen other people that have this opinion too, that John's real name will be Aemon.
See, I will go along with that because it seemed to me, and I suck at reading lips. I really, really do. But it looked like she was forming like an A or some kind of a vowel or something. Like it wasn't a John, like a J sound, but it seemed as if it was like A or something like that. And that is a very common first letter or names that start with A in the Targaryen family. So maybe that's why that stood out to me as well. Because it didn't seem like an R, because that's another popular one. Lots of R's. Yeah, I think that would be really cool if that was really his name. I like.
Well, the evidence that kind of supports it, it's not even really evidence of anything. It's just more the what can be used textually to support what's happening. One, when he
Hmm.
was at the wall with the Night's Watch, he was being looked after by Aemon Targaryen. You know, Aemon Targaryen was the maester there, and Aemon
Yeah,
Targaryen really liked Jon a lot. So on that one um, point, it would be a nice reveal for him to have the same name as Maester Aemon.
yeah.
A little bit of book stuff, kind of a something that might get overlooked a little bit. There's stories about when Jon and Robb would play as children, and they would always pretend that they were different people. The person Jon always liked to pretend that he was a knight called Aemon the Dragon Knight, and he was a member of the King's Guard under Viserys II.
Oh,
So there's a little bit of stuff there in the text that might suggest that Aemon could be
interesting.
Jon's name.
Yeah.
But I just love that they took that and resolved it, but put another little mystery in there. And I assume that Bran heard the name.
Hmm.
Did you think Bran heard the name or not?
No, because I figured that we were observing it as Bran was, and that for whatever reason Bran didn't catch it. I think that if he would have heard it, then we would have heard it too. So what I took from it was that name has it died with Ned Stark unless he told somebody else afterwards. If there's anybody else that happens to know about what happened up there. Uh, yeah, I saw is we were quite literally seeing it through Bran's perspective. So I don't think he did.
Hmm.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I also get the idea that Bran understands that this is Jon. Like he doesn't, it's not a question to him. Like I think he understands that this is Jon.
Although we didn't really see too much of any kind of a realization or any there was no aha moment that we got from Bran. I mean, they show briefly Bran just kind of observing this, but that was it. And it was before I think the baby was presented. I think I can't remember exactly where within that scene we saw him standing. What I assume is at the foot of the bed. So I don't know if he does or not. I did
So
notice. I did notice that Ned uh, took the Dawn sword. I think was it the name of the sword, Dawn?
Dawn, yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that he had it with him. He took it and he had it there at the end of the bed. I don't know why that's the camera kind of focused in on that. I thought that was kind of a cool little
That
thing.
that might be in homage to the Azor Ahai theory about Jon being this
Oh,
prophesied hero that
with
would come back
with
and
Lightbringer,
with
right?
Lightbringer and destroy the White Walkers. Um, I had heard on another podcast they talked about this, that one of the criteria of this prophecy of Azor Ahai, of this hero that would emerge to, destroy the others, is born under a bleeding star. And a lot of people think that meant like a comet, how like the red comets are,
Right.
and they have like they call those the bleeding stars. But on another podcast, I heard a theory about how the sword Dawn is actually forged from a meteor.
Right.
So it is itself part star. And that sword that Ned had was covered in blood. And so it is
Yeah.
symbolically a bleeding star.
And the dawn brings the light of day.
Very true.
So that sword is named, in essence, Lightbringer, which is the dawn as well.
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll ever see Dawn again in this show. I would really like that because it is kind of this legendary sword. It's kind of like a lightsaber in Westeros almost, with the
Hmm.
way it supposedly kind of glows. We got kind of a more understated version of it in the show, but it would be kind of neat to see it again.
Well, if Ned had it in his possession, I would assume it's possibly there in Winterfell somewhere. So what if it's something that John finds later? Now
Well,
that they have, reclaimed Winterfell, what if it's something that they come across? If he's staying in his parents' old room, it might, who knows? It might be in there somewhere.
the show could do that. The show could pull that off. The books couldn't.
Right. Why couldn't the books do it?
Because it's part of Ned's journey
Mm.
is that after he leaves the Tower of Joy, he actually travels to return the ancestral sword
Oh,
of
okay.
House Dane.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, come on, I love this scene. I mean, there's just it was perfect. It was perfect. Loved it.
That's good to hear from, a book reader, that they felt that that scene was, served well. That's good because I enjoyed it too, but I hadn't been waiting on this scene for 20 years. So to know that somebody who has felt satisfied by it, it makes me appreciate it even more so.
I think it was everything it needed to be
Yeah.
because it captured the emotion of it, and I think the music really helped there too. And that transition shot from baby John into adult John is just awesome. Which takes us into the Hall of Winterfell, where all the Northern Lords have gathered, and we see Jon and Sansa. And holy shit, if Jon and Sansa do not look like Ned and Kat, I don't know who does. Like just the placement of them, the expressions, the almost like the silhouette of them looks very similar too.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing here is the Northern Lords talking kind of about everything that was going on with the Boltons and what needs to be done in the future. There are some who think the battles are over. There are some complaints in the room about the wildlings being called upon to help. And there's a little bit of discontent among everybody that's in the room. Jon kind of reassures everybody that, we all fought together, we all fought bravely. This war is not over. And I did like the line where Jon says, this enemy brings the storm,
Yeah. Yep.
which also was kind of a fun, almost callback to Euron in a way, because Euron talks about how he
I
is the storm.
thought, yes, I thought that too. I really did. And I didn't know if it was done purposefully or what, but that's immediately what I thought of as well.
So it seems as though, for a brief moment, that there's a little bit of disarray in the North. They don't like the idea of the wildlings. They're not sure what they want to do as far as who to stand behind. And then everybody's favorite little lady
Oh, yes.
steps up and she makes an awesome speech calling out the Northern Lords who didn't show up to fight.
Yeah.
And oh, did I love this.
It was wonderful.
The North remembers. So, do you remember how I talked about how there are three big book things that they came back to here?
Yep.
This speech is one of them. It's a little bit different than it was in the books, and it's actually not delivered by Lyanna Mormont. It's actually delivered by Wyman Manderley, only in a completely different context. Um, so it's a little bit redone, but the way they did it, again, masterful. Lyanna Mormont, utters the line that she wrote in her letter to Stannis: Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north, whose name is Stark. And she doesn't care if he's a bastard because Ned Stark's blood flows through his veins, which is actually not true, which we learned in the scene prior.
Well, it's
But
Stark blood, but not specifically Ned's.
yeah, but I love the fact that she is the one who is the first person to proclaim Jon Snow the King of the North.
Oh, I loved her calling out all the other houses. They, you swore fealty to them, and they called for aid when they needed it most, and you did nothing. Ramsay flayed your family, and yet you did nothing. And now, granted, we were kind of making fun of the fact that yes, she's going to give her fighting men, but only 62. So even though she didn't have much to offer, she gave what she could, and she herself was there, and she turned around and called every single one of those houses out for not doing what they should have. I loved it.
And Lord Glover does ask Jon for forgiveness. Jon says there's nothing to forgive. Good move on his part, I thought, for sure.
Yep. Keep it. I mean, it was very diplomatic. He understood where he was coming from, and it's like, I can't blame you. I'm not gonna forgive it. That's fine, but I'm giving you a fresh, clean slate right now. Have my
And
back.
the Glovers and the Manderleys take a knee, and the whole thing just starts up, and everybody in the room proclaims Jon the King in the North. And it was very, very similar to the way Robb was proclaimed King in the North.
Yep. A lot of very heavy, unsaid dialogue happening between Sansa and Littlefinger at the end of this.
Well, you know what's really funny? This is jealousy. Littlefinger's jealous here
Yeah.
because he wants what Jon has in this moment.
Yep.
He has Sansa right next to him, and he has the respect of all of the Northern Lords who want to unite behind him. And I think this maybe shows a couple of cracks in Littlefinger's foundation, or maybe his overall plan. Maybe it's not just about playing the game. Maybe it's not just about scheming. Maybe it's about actually leading.
I, I don't know. I think he didn't get the credit that he deserved, that he feels that well, I mean, that he does deserve, that he feels that he deserves. That here they're claiming Jon the King of the North, and he's over there off to the side sulking like, I just saved all of your asses, or else it would be Ramsay sitting in here still. And I get nothing. And the woman I want is sitting up there with her brother, and yeah, he is just sulking.
But we know that Littlefinger wields power behind the scenes.
Right.
He has no official power in this situation
No.
because the Knights of the Vale were sent by Robin Aaron, not Littlefinger. I mean, if you were to go through like the logistics and paperwork of the whole thing, like
Well,
he
if
doesn't
you
have any power in the situation.
well, but he is the puppet master behind Robin.
Right, right. But this is the
So
flip
in
side of being the puppet master is
but
sometimes you don't get the respect or credit or worship that you want from people.
right. But in his eyes, he was the one who um orchestrated all of that. And I think, yes, I agree. It's kind of come to bite him in the ass, so to speak.
Maybe my favorite thing about this scene is the Lyanna Mormont smile.
Her little nod to Jon
Her
Snow, like, yeah, I got you.
her
You're
King in the
welcome.
North grin. And so I need to go back and see this because I can't see it when I look at it like on my phone or whatever. But when you have that shot from John's perspective of the whole crowd like holding up their swords,
Hmm.
chanting, is she holding up like a knife?
Oh, I didn't notice. I have no
I
idea.
thought she was. I think she's like holding up a knife, and I'm like, man, she's awesome because she's wielding a blade too.
She doesn't have a sword, but she's got a little knife. No, but I loved her little nod acknowledgement, like to John, like, yeah, that's right. I got your back. You're welcome. We got this. Um, so nice little subtleties again in unspoken dialogue. And I actually want to back up just a quite a few scenes that I forgot to mention. Again, in unspoken dialogue that happened between Dany and Tyrion, where they were having their little conversation, and Dany once again, or I'm sorry, Tyrion once again brings up Dany's father as being, crazy mad king, and she has this look on her face that she gives him, like, why does everybody keep bringing that up? Like, stop it. It was just such a wonderful, um, just a wonderful moment there, that a simple movement or a simple look that spoke a thousand words. I thought it was so good. And again, same thing with little Liana here, that with that little nod acknowledgement, like, uh-huh, yeah, you're welcome. I gotcha.
And I think this is now the moment where John is no longer the reluctant hero. Like he stands up and
Yeah,
he kind of like leans in, like he's ready to accept this. And I think part of that comes with what he's taken back. And now it's almost like being in Winterfell again, having those wolf banners flying again. It
yeah.
has reinvigorated some sort of sense of place and purpose and pride in John. And now he has been given his purpose and he's not shying away from it. He's accepting it. And I love the way Sansa is kind of like looking at him, like you can tell she is genuinely happy for him.
She's proud. She's very proud because she knew she had a part to play in this, and she played her part very well. So she's proud of the whole thing. I think she's even proud of herself because um she played the part in having this happen. And again, I do also, I side with you, and I believe that John has stepped into this role. You can see it with the that his shoulders are kind of rolled back a little bit. I think he even puffs his chest out just a little bit. He doesn't seem so rolled forward and contracted and sullen, where he's, standing as proud as I think we've ever seen him, and yet uh, humble. Like, he's not arrogantly uh, taking this stand of power, but he's humbled by it. He's, in a moment he's kind of overwhelmed by it, I think, but at the same time he's owning it. And I thought it was a great moment, and it was very emotional. That it gave me goosebumps, and it was just it, especially after the scene that we just came out of, then to come into this one, it's just, this whole episode was just a huge roller coaster of emotions going up and down and up and down, and I was exhausted by the end of it.
And like this particular scene with John and the Northern Lords is kind of the first of a three-step ending to this episode where the new power steps forward.
Yeah.
Because now we've got John in the north, we've got Cersei crowned as queen in Westeros, and I do not know how this is going to go over.
I don't either. She's going over in King's Landing or all of Westeros.
Either at this point, like she was a laughing stock, she was hated by everybody. Are they
Yeah.
just going to accept her as queen?
Right now, I don't think they have much of a choice. I mean, there was that moment where she was, I don't know if it was right as she was being crowned or when she was being seated, but there is a shot where they kind of show the court, or they show the audience that are watching this happen, and it's almost like the people are stunned, like they don't know what to think. They're all shell shocked because half their city just blew up, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden this is happening, and then Jamie walks in.
Yeah, Jamie rides in like
Oh,
right as this whole shit's going down, so he has no idea what's happening. But
yeah.
like, what is the story that Cersei is putting out? Like, what is she saying happened here? Is this just her taking over? Is she seizing power? Like, I don't know how the citizens of King's Landing will take to having somebody burn a bunch of people in a church.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of I don't think she's going to admit to doing it, that had anything to do with her. But she may just play it off as some freak accident, We didn't know this was under there. Oh my God, I can't believe that this happened. Uh, who knew that this stuff had been, cached under there for so long and, static or, whatever, ignited it and it was gone. And she's stepping up in a moment of need. I'm pretty sure that's how she's going to end up playing it. She's not going to take any responsibility for it whatsoever. And if anybody breathes any little bits of her plan out, the mountain is going to take them out. So I think she's, even though she's, got her black leather on and she is fully dressed like a villain, I think she is going to present herself as coming forward in this. She's going to take responsibility for the kingdom, and this horrible thing happened, and she's going to make sure everybody's taken care of.
So is this Jamie's mystery to solve next season? Is he going to do a full Sherlock Holmes and investigate the wildfire explosion? This is not going to go
No,
over
I
well with
don't.
him.
I No, I think if anybody that she was going to reveal it to, I mean, obviously Kyber knows, the Mountain knows, her tight circle of those, two people, that those are the only people that she really has in her ring. I think if anybody, I think she would tell Jamie, and I think that's going to be a point of contention between the two of them, and I think that may completely rip apart their relationship because she will reveal that to him.
That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
And then
that's my prediction.
I kind of want to tie this together with the very last scene, which is the scene that I think everybody's been waiting 6 seasons for. Dany finally with her
Yes.
dragons and her ships on her way to Dorne, I would guess.
I guess so, yeah.
And we get this great shot of her sprawling fleet and her 3 dragons as she's at the head ship with Varys behind her and Tyrion and Missandei. And we also see that on her, among her fleet, are not just dragon banners, but there are Tyrell banners
Yep.
and Martell banners on those sails.
Yep. And did you see the oh my gosh, what is it called? The head of her ship? What is that called? The very front of a ship. Something
The
head.
mast
Yeah, the very front of the ship with the dragon on there.
looked
Oh, it looks
awesome.
so cool.
Yeah, they
Really.
really worked hard to get the boats designed with the dragon insignias on the front.
I love that they showed the stable holds down in the bowels of some of the ships, so the horses are being taken care of. They've got some hay. They're chilling. They're eating their hay while they're on their little trek. I don't know why. I just enjoyed that, seeing that little moment. But I was kind of shocked to see Varys there at first, and then I was able to realize, like, oh, okay. I On my second viewing, I saw that there were the other ships, and so we're led to believe that there's quite a bit of time that took place
Yeah,
between between this whole episode. Um, Even just with her own storyline, there's a lot of time that happened. Um, because all the ships from Westeros had to arrive and they had to redecorate and repaint all those sails and the ships and everything. So there's a lot of time that happened,
yeah.
and
I'm honestly not concerned with time jumps on the show
I'm
anymore.
not either. I don't
I
care
don't even
about it
acknowledge them.
anymore.
It's
Yeah,
just a thing that happens.
I don't care about it anymore, and there are still people who are so dead set on it.
Yeah, they need to get over
Uh,
it.
they do, and I think there's quite a few people who did get over it because this episode did deliver so much that if they were trying to stay within the same time frame, there's a ton of this that we never would have gotten at all.
Right.
So I think they all kind of sucked it up, and the few people who were complaining about it, I just kind of brushed them off to the side. Like, yeah, I go away.
But let's tie this whole thing together now because here's what the way that we've concluded season 6. The Red Wedding has been avenged.
Yeah,
The Boltons and the Freys gone.
yeah,
So the Red Wedding has been avenged by the Starks. Jon has been proclaimed king in the north. So we've got a new king in the north. Cersei has seized power in King's Landing. We've got a new queen in King's Landing. And now we have Daenerys coming over with 100,000 Dothraki, second sons. I mean, I'm assuming some of them got left behind, but she has Unsullied as well. She has three dragons. She has a fleet of ships from the Greyjoys, the Martells,
Mm,
and the Tyrells.
yep.
Not to mention, the Dornish army hasn't been used for anything. They've sat out the entire War of the Five Kings. You've got the um, Tyrell army as well, which is the second largest army in King's Landing.
Yeah,
This feels like Daenerys is unstoppable.
it certainly does. And Daenerys is after the throne. The rest of that group, the Tyrells and the Martells, they are after revenge against the throne. So Cersei's got a lot gunning for her right now. She's getting, she is going to have a lot coming at her. Yeah,
And we also still have Euron Greyjoy, who is a wild card in this whole situation. So I'm not sure how he fits into all this. We also have the Night's King coming down, presumably towards the wall. All these pieces are in place for massive conflict now that's about to happen.
only 2 seasons left, 2 short seasons, and I have a feeling they are going to be jam packed and loaded.
I agree, and I loved season 6. I actually think that this has been the best season of the show yet. I really loved season 4, but I think season 6. When I look at the first 5 episodes of the season, they're
Yeah,
awesome. Episodes 6, 7, and 8, things kind of got away from them a little bit, but we still had the Hound reintroduced in there, and we still had the Brotherhood Without Banners brought back. So I found stuff in there that I loved. And then these last 2 episodes, which I think are easily 2 of the top 5 episodes ever in this show,
I would agree. Yeah, I would
gives it
completely
this
agree.
strong ending as it starts to evolve into this next phase of the story. So I thought this was a top to bottom sensational season, and this finale is as good as you're going to find.
I mean, but just look at the bookends that we have from episode 1 to episode 10. Episode 1, Jon Snow was dead, and now he's king of the North. Episode 1, Daenerys was captured, or was a prisoner, so to speak, of the Dothraki. And now she's got them on ships heading to Westeros. I mean, massive. Cersei was she was at her lowest point ever. She was just coming out of having the walk of shame. She was feeling incredibly shamed, and now she's sitting on the Iron Throne. I
Yeah,
mean,
do you
just
remember
huge um, yin and yang with our main characters this season.
when they did those 3 like 30-second promos? There was one that was done for the Starks where you hear the Ramsay line, Winterfell is
Oh, it
mine,
was
come
just
and
the
see.
banners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was the one you hear the High Sparrow, and then another one you hear the Dothraki.
Yeah.
All of the voices in those trailers are wiped out now.
That's true. Yeah.
Like all those banners that were in, tattered rags in that little mini preview are flying high again. Like they've completely flipped the power dynamic on their enemies, and their enemies are gone.
Yep.
So those are our thoughts on the season 6 finale. But we want to know your thoughts. So go ahead and hit us up on Twitter at NerdFlixChill and on Facebook under the same name. Let us know what you thought of the season 6 finale and anything that you might be looking forward to in season 7. And until next time, everybody, may the force be with you, because the night is dark and full of terrors. Yes! There's a lot in that one. But you know what I just realized? Is
What?
some of the shit in this episode was so good there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, that's
It was
true.
like, oh, and then that happened. Yeah.